the Apostle John. John the Apostle, we saw it. If you've been in Bible study or been in the sermon or heard the sermon intro when I gave, John the Apostle was one of the initial 12 apostles of Jesus.
Okay.
He was one of the initial 12 that Jesus called to be an apostle. And on Wednesdays, I'll be giving you life lessons about John. John is a pastor, and he's pastoring the churches in Asia Minor, the modern day Turkey. So you'll find the churches that John is speaking to in the book of Revelation, where you find those 5 churches, right? To the churches of. And so he's in Ephesus, scholars say, and he's writing this letter to the pastors of these churches. So he's a pastor, and he has pastors under his leadership because he can't be, they didn't have technology. He could be at one place and they could see him on TV, right? So in those gatherings, they had pastors over those gatherings, and he wrote the letter to circulate to those different churches and pastors. And he wrote the letter because the purpose of him writing the letter is because the church in Asia Minor was being influenced by false teachers. They were being influenced from the inside. And they were being influenced, and they were being influenced so much so that they literally were walking out of fellowship with God. So they would hear the false teaching. And it's crazy because these churches, if you study the churches, they were strong churches in the beginning. If you read the book of Ephesians, that is a solid book, right? And if you look at the beginnings of these churches, they were on fire. And now, 60 years later, they are infant at best. And I asked, well, what happened? How could they be so strong in the beginning and get taken away by this time? By false teaching, when they heard the real deal, they got John, who was with Jesus, as their pastor. This isn't secondhand, this is first-hand information.
Right.
60 years of preaching Jesus, you would think they would be stronger than weaker.
Yeah.
But just because you sit under the word doesn't mean you're investing yourself and dwelling yourself with the word. Just because you come to church every Sunday and hear about Jesus doesn't mean that you're living the life of Jesus. Just because you hear this book doesn't mean you're taking the book for yourself and reading it for yourself. And so these false teachers infiltrate the church. And 1 John says some of the church actually walk out with the false teachers. And so John is now writing this letter. And catch this here, John at this time is about 90 to 100 years old. But he's still pastoring.
All right.
He's 90 to 100 years old, but he's still serving.
Faithful.
Biblical historians say that John was also called a son of thunder. Him and his brother were called the sons of thunder because they had so much passion and zeal in their personality. But then John is also called the disciple of the beloved disciple. He named himself the beloved disciple, which we saw on Wednesday night and talked about there. And Bible history records say that he was so on mission that the enemy asked to shut him up, tried to boil him in hot oil to death. But God's grace and mercy allowed him to survive. And on top of that, the enemy them to drink poison. And he still survived, and he still served the Lord.
Yeah.
So can I speak this truth to the seasoned saints just for a moment? You may have some health challenges right now.
Well.
You may have some arthritis issues.
Well. Amen. All right. Amen.
You may have some hurts because the enemy is trying to stop you from serving. But the issue, but the lesson you need to learn from John is that John didn't stop going.
Come on.
John didn't let his age stop him. John didn't let burnt up by hot oil stop him. He ain't let trying to be forced by, but none of y'all were done that. But he kept serving the Lord. Well, Pastor, what? Okay, well, what's in it for me? All the other disciples were martyred, meaning they died on the field. But God preserved his life so much that he was able to die of natural causes. Seasoned saints, God has some work for you to still do.
Amen.
God still loves you, and he has value in you. So the lesson you need to learn today from John is that if God did it for him, he can do it for me.